Hey there, Facebook. Hey there, Insta. It's so good to be here with you guys. Oh, good grief, my phone's ringing. Well, not answering that. Hey guys, it's Donna Hoffman once again with you on a fabulous Tuesday. It's time to put a plug in it here or a pin in it here. That phone is driving me crazy. It's time to put a pin in it here at the design studio. Come out here and talk to you. We like to teach lessons and see what you're up to and take different topics and kind of chew them out with you and chew them up, spit them out. And I don't know, I'm babbling because my phone's ringing. Wasn't expecting that. Gotta tell you, having such a crazy day today. Good day. Met with a really interesting family that may want us to work with them on their design build. And poor Katie, we were cracking up about this before I came out here. I gotta tell you, Katie is the greatest. She is my partner in crime when it comes to eating dark chocolate, designing a great room, troubleshooting, teaching our wonderful students, at the Interior Design Advocate. So I just got a new car. Can't stand car shopping. Can't stand, really, I don't get into the whole car thing, and I'm not techie. So it takes me, Steve and I we lease one car and we buy one car. So my lease was up, and it takes me about 3 years to really learn how to use the car fully. I may know how to drive it. I know how to go and stop. But all the other stuff, up for grabs. And so Katie had to call me from a showroom. She was looking for something for a client. She wanted me to sign off on something. And I said in an utter panic, Katie, I have no idea how to use this car. I'm going 60 miles an hour. I'm trying to get to an appointment. I'm running late. As long as you like it, just get it. I don't know how to use the air conditioning. So I'm generally either too hot or too cold in this car. And I have no idea how to change the radio station or satellite thing. And then I decided not to do a nav system because I thought, well, that's a waste because I, can use Apple Maps or Apple whatever, or some map thing, Waze. But the thing is though, when Waze is up, if the phone rings with Katie, I suddenly have no directions. And so I told poor Katie, just get it. I blew her off. Katie, I am apologizing to you on national whatever. I'm getting the thumbs up from Katie. On national whatever this is, I apologize for blowing off Katie. I was hot, I was sweaty, bad music was playing, and I was lost. So there you go. So probably just before this lease is up, I will know how to operate this car fully, and then it'll be all over. All right, what are we talking about today? We are talking about window treatments. We're talking about, actually, we took the title of this live from a comment one of you sent in to me, which was, help, I am terrified of picking out window treatment panels and not creating flow. Whether that's for adjoining spaces or whether that's for your contained spaces that are kind of adjoining as well as total open concept. So here's what you need to know. And by the way, I'm happy to take your project questions as long as I don't need to see a picture to be able to answer you. Alrighty, so, your brain has a very simple way of operating. As brilliant as you are, we have this primitive piece of our brain that just wants to make sense of our environment. Our brain wants us to feel safe. So our brain is always looking to create order. Even if there is no order, our brain is always looking for something to grab onto, some pattern, some repetition. And that's honestly how the eye works in design. Your eye walks into a space, it scans that space, and it's looking for something to grab onto. And just like that Sesame Street song is, one of these things is not like the other. Well, your eye is doing the same thing inside of a room. It's looking to see where is there a continuum of something. So maybe in design you've heard about rhythm. That comes from a repetition, whether it's a color repeating or a shape repeating or a pattern repeating. And that doesn't mean repeating across a single line. It might be a repetition from a color that's on a kitchen counter and then it bounces onto a wall. And then from there onto a window, or it might be a color in an accessory that then bounces onto a window and across a few window treatments. So when you talk about creating flow in an environment, and this is a slightly more advanced concept and certainly easier to teach with visuals, which is why I'm actually teaching a workshop on this in a couple of weeks at our Design Diva conference. This is part of one of the workshops. But what you need to know is that you are telling the eye where you want it to go when you're designing a space. And window treatments are part of that in a massive way. Why? Because your window treatments, as I've said before when I've taught you about window treatments, your window treatments surround all that glass. They surround the most important, or one of the most important, architectural features in a room. In fact, when I was meeting with this lovely couple this morning looking at their blueprints, I looked at their family room and I said, hey, in this open concept space, do you think you're ever going to want to treat your family room windows? And they said, what do you mean? I said, do you think you'll ever want panels in particular? And they said, well, we don't know, we might. I said, well, the way those windows are placed right now, you'll never get panels on either side of those these French doors and windows that they had. So that's how important window treatments are to flow. They should be an early and very well considered decision for shape. What shape are they? So obviously panels, you've got these wonderful north-south columns, but are you doing those on rods? And if you are, do you want your rod to fade into that paint color? So it's maybe on a white wall, a silver brushed rod, or do you want that rod to come forward so that you have a strong horizontal line with your panels? These are all considerations you want to have. Now, maybe you're more traditional and maybe you want to have your panels buried underneath a valance of some sort. And so now you've got these strong horizontal lines with your vertical lines. So when you're doing your panels, I want you to think not only of the fabric itself, that's where everybody jumps, but I want you to think about that flow and ask yourself, is there a color I want to repeat in my space? So I want to drive it into those panels because I know as a focal grab, my window treatments are going to really grab some attention. Is there a color I want to repeat? Is there a fabric texture that I want to repeat, or something new I want to bring in? Do I want to break flow with these window treatments? Do I want to stop the eye and make these window treatments the one different thing in my open concept space? I don't know. I have no idea what you're designing. Maybe you're doing a really cool, modern something or other, and color is an important splash in your space, and you want to do a real pow at those windows and just stop the eye and break a rhythm, break a flow that you've already established elsewhere. That's what we do as designers. We create rhythms and then we interrupt them, and we create rhythms and then we interrupt it. Or in some spaces, we just let there be a very easy, calming rhythm. It depends upon the design fingerprint, I think, of the people that you're designing for. And if you're designing for yourself, it depends on your design fingerprint. Not your design style, your design fingerprint. The fingerprint is what lives underneath every single design style, which is why you and I've always said when any of my workshops that you may have attended, you and I could do the same room in the same 3 rooms, same 3 living rooms in the same exact style, but because of the design fingerprints of the women we're designing for, 3 totally different looks, right? So window treatments are a prime driver in flow and in a total room's finish and in a total room's sense of completion. Window treatment panels are a topic unto themselves. There's a lot to consider. I started to talk about that rod. You need to think about something called the header. The header is where things attach at the top of that panel. Some of you know it as the pleat. Is it a pinch pleat? Is it a center pinch pleat? Is it a top tack? Is it a butterfly? Is it a goblet? Is it a relaxed header, which doesn't have an actual technical pleat to it? So you want to consider is it a grommet top? So you want to consider all of these elements as you're picking out those window treatment panels. But I think rather than getting bogged down in that level of detail, the first thing I'd love to see you do is drill down on isolating the right fabric, the right color. If you're doing pattern, I want you to anticipate what that pattern is going to do when you put it into a panel. Let's say you've got a big repeat, bold kind of pattern. And if you were to put that, let's say, onto a Roman, you'd see that pattern because it would just be broadcast across this 36-inch window, let's say, in a Roman. But as soon as you take fabric and you pleat it and you start to almost, I guess, ruche it, you could say, right? It turns into folds, right? Now this pattern goes, and it looks more like texture than an actual pattern. So it's about knowing what you're trying to do and accomplish with those window treatments, answering the questions that I said, mentioned before about those panels. So you're picking out the right color and the right fabric and the right texture, and even thinking about that very early on in your planning. And it's also with window treatment panels, when you're trying to create flow, it's to know that you don't have to have the exact same treatment in your open concept space. Everything doesn't have to be a panel. You can have panels in certain areas and you can have Romans in another. You can have panels in a certain area and shades in another area. We're not talking about matchy-matchy. We're talking about there being conversation between things if you want a beautiful high-end look in design. Want to tell you that I'd love for you to check out a great blog post that we've put up for you. It's called something great. I wrote it, but I forget what the title is. Window treatments, how window treatments can transform your space, the rules of the road. I don't know why I forget my titles of things. I write so much between the two blogs, the blog I have here at the Interior Design Advocate and my blog for my private design company, which is Interiors by Donna Hoffman, doing a lot of writing, plus all the Instagramming for both sides of our business. So that's why I write it and then I forget about it. So anyway, so I hope you'll check out that post. People are loving it and it's really good content. I really packed a lot of good info there. So if you have a question about window treatment panels, or if you have questions about your own projects, as long as I don't need to see a picture to be able to answer you about your project, I'm happy to take a project question. And I'll ask right now, because I know window treatments are a popular point of confusion. I'll ask that you try to keep your project questions about window treatments. I'll take those as a preference. Okay, so I'm getting lots of hellos from everybody, and hellos over there and waves on Insta, so that's all great to see. Rachel's telling me that she's not into cars either, and that she's still driving a 1999 truck because you don't want to learn new car. Rachel, I feel your pain, girlfriend. Totally feel your pain. I'm with you. Okay, Diane Gettings wants to know what to use on bay windows. Got it, bay windows. Does everybody else agree? Bay windows driving you crazy? I want to know, what drives you crazier, bay window or a sliding glass door? One of my students told me that a sliding glass door to her was the devil. Karen is, she's on her way to Italy and she's joining us from the plane. Hey, oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I was there with you, Karen. That sounds so good. Getting hellos from other people. Eleanor is saying, are shears with drapery panels out of style? Oh, these are such good questions. OMG, here we go. All right, so I'm going to say, let's drill in first. I'll take them in order. Let's talk about that bay window. All right, Dan, I'm about to become your favorite Facebook living designer. Bay windows are so much easier than you realize. They are. So you either have curved bays or you have angled bays, right? Either the bay curves or it's angled. The important thing to consider is budget, because technically, Diane, you could drop a panel on the outside of your bay and through every single window, provided that you have enough clearance for something called your stack, which is how the fabric kind of compresses into itself. And then you need to think about your budget, because if you don't have a lot of budget to blow here on that one window, you may not want to do a dropped panel throughout the bay, because you're going to double the number of panels, maybe triple if it's a huge bay, right? So if you don't want to do panels throughout, you don't have to. You can do shades. You can do absolutely any single treatment you could hope to do. You can do shades. You can do shutters. You can do combinations of shades with panels. The issue is about getting the proportion right, and it's about getting your stack right, and of course, selecting your fabric well so you have flow. This is something actually that I'm going to be teaching in much greater detail in a brand new course called Window Boss, how to plan and select your perfect window treatments, whether ready-mades, semi-custom, or custom. We'll be launching that in a couple of weeks, and in honor of that as well, I'll be launching a brand new free online workshop all about window treatments as well. So that'll be happening in just about a month from now. So good stuff coming. So hopefully that brief answer helps you, Diane. So then we had another question about shears. Eleanor wants to know if shear panels are out of style. They are not. The issue, Eleanor, is the kind of shear. You know, that very simple sheer with like a little ruffled bottom, kind of grandma looking. Yeah, that's gone. That is done. However, there are some phenomenal shears out there, some that look very organic and slubby, and some that have a really wide, obvious weave, and some that have a little bit of sheen to them. Some of them are embroidered. It really has to do with the context, the way you're using it, and what you're doing with it. So shears are not at all, you know, dead, not by a long shot. And still, when we're getting in new fabric books, you see just a little bit of our library behind us here in my office. We always get shear books, always. The thing to know about shears is that you may need to line them. And if you want to maintain the sheerness of the shear, you can line a shear with a shear, so you're still getting that kind of diaphanous kind of feeling with them. But we just did an indoor pool for a client, and we did a heavyweight shear. It had there's a little bit of light that moves through it. It's certainly not a fully opaque piece. When it passes in front of the window, you can tell that it's a shear, but it's not an obvious, like something called a voile, which is almost like that bridal veil-y kind of shear. But shears are still absolutely happening. So I'm still happy to take your questions on window treatments or anything that I've taught so far. And in the meantime, while I'm looking for those, I want to let you know next week's topic is a goodie. There's another goodie. Get this question a lot. This next week's topic is when to fight your architecture and how. When to fight your architecture and how. And I know some of my students are saying, wait a minute, he's always telling me I can't fight my architecture. I'm saying you have to be careful when you fight your architecture, because your architecture always wins. But as a savvy design diva, which you peeps are now because of our connection, there are ways to battle with your architecture, and there are ways to win, as long as you don't overpush it. All right, so we'll be talking about that next week. All right, so I want to try to clean my specs here. Got them all printy, probably when I was having a flop sweat in the car earlier, because I didn't know how to work any of the controls on the dashboard. I know I totally have mastered the brake and all that other stuff, but nothing having to do with my comfort. Okay, Home Decor Life Love is asking a question on Instagram, and the question is, what are your thoughts on grommet panels? They seem to have made a classy resurgence. Such a good question. Do you know, here's the story on grommets. I'm going to tell you why they've made their resurgence. Whether you like this answer or not, it is true. Grommet panels are the lowest cost labor panel to make. So if you were a ready-made manufacturer trying to deliver as much look or product as possible and to protect your profit margin, what would you do? The most expensive labor-intensive header or the lowest cost, lowest labor-intensive header? Answer number 2, right? Grommets. So if you are working with a custom or semi-custom workroom and you want to keep your costs down, you can go for a grommet. Some people object to grommets because they feel like it looks very ready-made. But here's the thing. I've done some beautiful custom window treatments for clients. I've done everything in my career, from ready-mades to semis to custom. And yes, in the luxury properties we work in, 99% of what we're doing is custom. And then we're doing some semi-custom when it comes to shade product. But there are some in the custom world. There are, get this, square grommets on a square rod in the right room. They look phenomenal. And something else you can do with grommets, if you're in that semi-custom world, you can do like a black grommet on a light fabric. If you're doing something kind of farmhouse or rustic, that can be really exciting looking. We've done things like that as well. So you can jazz up grommets, pretty cool. And here's what's really great about a grommet header. So remember, guys, the grommet is at the top where the fabric attaches to the rod, right? It literally is how the fabric slips onto the rod. The great thing about grommets is that they can allow the window panel to compress very flat, very, not totally flat, but very much more so than a pinch pleat or a top tack header. So why is that important? Well, if you're working in a master bedroom like we did a year and a half ago, where things were a little bit uneven, one window is much closer to the wall than the other one on the other side of the room. And so to shore it all up, we had to really reduce the amount of stack on one of the window treatments and how thick it was on one side of the window. And being able to cheat the look of fullness was easier to do with the grommet, so we could compress that panel more and get some really wonderful folds. Also, if you're doing a grommeted panel inside a dormer window, let me tell you, those grommets come in really handy because you can compress, push back that panel a little tighter into itself, as opposed to some of the other treatments. So when clients try to engage me in a political discussion, I will not engage, but I will tell them that I am pro grommet if it's right for you, and I am very pro tufting. So final 2 questions is what Katie's telling me. So in all seriousness, Home Decor Life Love on Insta, I hope I answered you. I think they're fine. I like a grommet. I would rather see you able to do a window treatment panel if panels are in order, and if grommets are going to give you some budget relief, I say go for it. As long as you install the treatment well, meaning the width and proportion is correct, the length is correct, the hanging height is correct. These are some things. Proportion is something I'm going to be teaching in the free online workshop I'll be doing in about 4 weeks. And then in the online course that I'm going to be launching, go into, we do a whole lesson just on panels. So there's that much to know, whether you're doing ready-made, semi-custom, or custom. And in that course, a lot of cheaters about how to get a really great look out of panels that are ready-made. So there you go. Alrighty, so final 2 questions. Katie's keeping me on track. I appreciate it, Katie. Okay, Lori's saying she has shutters. Feels cold in the bedroom. Can I put panels on the side? Okay, so here's the story. Logically, you really wouldn't put panels with a shutter, right? Because that shutter is supposed to open up, right? However, you're right. It can get a little bit cold in that there's a lot of hard surface happening in a room when there's all shutters. So I say desperate times call for desperate measures. We have a client who right now is saving on budget. So right now she did her bay window in shutters, and when she's ready, we're going to come back in and add panels just on the sides of all of her bay windows. She has a couple of them, and it'll be a game changer in the room because it will completely warm up the room. It's also going to lift her ceiling. It's going to frame her view in a whole new way as well. So logically, one would not do a panel when there are any sort of when there's any sort of shutter, but it can be done. It's just not the most logical thing. I don't really know how I feel about it on single windows, double windows, triple windows, but on a bay, when I've seen it done, I really haven't minded it. I haven't really thought about it on singles, doubles, and triples because we haven't really been asked to do that. So I hope I helped you on that, and I'd want to see a picture of your room to be able to really weigh in. Okay, so the last question. Oh, it's a long question. Okay, you guys know I like short, easy, quick questions. So this is Joanne Nasrallah. Joanne says, hi, should all panels in a room be the same length? For instance, where there is not significant space between the dreaded sliding door and a double window. Previously, the window curtains were shorter. Joanne, I want to see a picture to know what you're talking about. Really off the, shooting from the hip. I want all of your window panels to have the same length to the floor. However, if you've taken your rods to different hanging heights, which is not something I'm terribly in favor of doing. Joanne, you've either got to take the Window Boss course or at least show up to the free online workshop, because I'm kind of addressing this a little bit, I think, in one of my lessons. So I'm going to take another question because I gave Joanne a half answer. But that's because I love you, Joanne. Joanne's one of my students, and I want you to have a great answer, not a flippant, off-the-cuff answer. All right, Jill Kenny Keogh. Another big question. I'm getting long questions here. I'm getting thumbs up though, so that's good. What is your opinion about mini rods and stationary panels flanking windows for a decor touch? Yeah, it's not functional. In other words, a stationary rod, and when you say a mini rod, Jill, I think you mean a rod that doesn't continue across an entire window. If the size of the rods and the fabric are ample enough, not skimpy, do you think they look like you skimped on the treatment? Do you see high-end homes using stationary panels or only full panel rods with side panels stacked? Okay, so you're kind of mixing metaphors a little bit. Do I see high-end homes using only stationary panels rather than traversing panels. You do that all the time. Guys, everybody's got a budget. I don't care how many zeros there are in your budget. Everybody's got a budget, and we're always looking to, okay, we put more money into the living room draperies, so we got to do something in the home office. So that trade up and trade down is a good way of thinking in design. So stationary panels, if you don't know what that is, those are panels that don't close. They're stationary. Panels that close are traversing panels. They close so that you can control view and light. When you close a panel across a 60-inch window, you need more fabric than if you have a single drapery static panel. Here's the thing though. If you don't increase the width of that panel correctly, even though it doesn't close, if it looks too skinny against the whole window, that's when it looks like you have skimped and like it's been really like somebody ran out of the bucks on the project, Jill. So that's what you don't see in your Pinterest pictures, house, all the rooms that you're lusting after and saying, gee, I want to emulate that. Those window treatments have wonderful proportion. Teaching proportion well for panels is something I teach deeply in the course that we're launching, Window Boss. So that would be something that could help you. Then, and you just want to pay attention to the module on just window treatment panels, or the video on that. And then to answer your question about the partial rods, I've done partial rods. I don't love them. I don't hate them. I think it depends upon the situation that we're looking at. Some clients just, and design lovers, just don't like a lot of empty rod across a window or an expanse of glass. I don't happen to mind that. Or they don't like the look of, you know, when you have a big wide rod, you have to have some supports in there so the rod doesn't bow in the center. I don't mind the look of that. To me, if you've done your job well, that's not the first place anybody's going to look. They're looking at the focal point where you're driving their eye in a room, right? So I think people can start to overthink, you know, the rod. It should be partial, you know, that they don't want those supports visible. So anyway, so I think you can do it. I would want to see the room you're talking about, Jill, before I weighed in with a final, but general, I don't have a problem with partial rods versus full rods. I tend to always think more in terms of a full rod than a partial rod, but I've done both, okay? So do we have time for this? Oh, we don't have time. I am sorry. I have overstayed my welcome. Katie gave me the high sign that I had final 2 questions and I took an extra couple, so I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question today. It was great to spend time with you. I do want to let you know that if you're not already following us on Instagram, peeps, what? That's the wrong one. That's IDH Designs. You could follow us at IDH Designs. Why the heck not? It's our luxury design company. You can see what really excites us and what our clients are up to. But if you want to learn some lessons, you want to go to @decorating.genius, @decorating.genius for more teaching, more connection as design coach to design diva. There it is. Holy smokes, and there it is, the Design Diva Conference. Oh my gosh, this is coming a couple weeks away. I think we have just a couple of days left on the lower pricing options. So if you think you want to hop on over to a game changer, life changer conference, head to the website, theinteriordesignadvocate.com / I don't know if there's a /, just go to the events page. Check us out there. Oh my gosh, you should see the trend workshop alone that we're doing. Not only noting what the trends are, but also how in different phases and stages you can take these trends in different degrees into your home. An amazing workshop on how to mix furniture styles, both wood furniture and also upholstered items. I mean, there are so many great workshops, and we've got a designer panel coming in. Oh my gosh, with a very generous audience Q&A for the design panel of professional designers. So there's a lot of good stuff, project masterminding happening as well. So head to the website if you can and take a look at that. Okay, dolls, next week we're talking about how and when to fight your architecture and how to win the battle. And until that all happens, I will see you next week, and I send you a big, giant hug from me to you, and I hope you have a great week. Bye, everyone.